Well, hello everyone. Welcome to my first blab and Kristen's first blab. We're playing around with the platform this morning, but for a very important reason and a great cause. Kristen is a breast cancer survivor, and it is the month of October, and we are celebrating all of the wonderful people in our lives that are surviving. They're warriors, they're pushing through, or they have survived breast cancer and they continue to persevere. It's just amazing the inspiration that I've gotten from Kristen and people with stories like hers. So I wanted to talk to Kristen this morning in public and live to let her tell her story. The more stories that we hear and the more that we know, the better we can do with taking care of ourselves now and in the future. So I'm Carrie Harper, and this is Kristen Caldwell.
Hello.
And we are on a fitness team together. And we are also hosting a charity that we will tell you about later in the plab. So, Kristen, we're going to start back at the beginning of when you found a lump and kind of take us through the beginning stages of what happened with you and tell us how old you were. That was important too.
Sure. So I was 38 years old and I just went for a routine annual exam at my OB. And, we were just doing the breast exam and, you can kind of look, and then she kind of went back to one area, went back around and then came back, and she was like, huh? And I was like, what? And she was like, well, there's a little spot here. It's really small, but I want to go ahead and have it checked out. She had said that she thought it probably was scar tissue. Just to kind of the reason for that is in 2011, I had a breast reduction and I had a lot of scar tissue around the areola from that. She didn't think it was anything. It didn't feel abnormal. It was very small, probably smaller than the size of a pea, but just to be on the safe side. So that was May 11th of 2013. 2 days later, I was at a imaging center and they did a mammogram and an ultrasound just to kind of double check it two ways. And the radiologist came back and said, it's nothing to be worried about. So perfect. Thumbs up, no worries, everybody can relax and all that kind of stuff. And because at the time I couldn't even feel it. Like I had no idea what she was looking at or feeling or anything. But at the time and still now, I am an avid runner and I was running every day at the time, as I am still. But 2 weeks later, I could actually feel it, which means it had grown, and called her right away. And I said, I think it's gotten bigger. And so she had me come in that afternoon. I'm very blessed that my OB-GYN, they weren't playing around. And went back in and she said, okay, we're going to go ahead and get you back over for a follow-up. And we just did an ultrasound at that time. And what was odd about it is I had inflammation at this point now. So my areola was inflamed and swollen. And I had a small, kind of like it looked like just a little like a little rash on the outside of my skin. So that was for concern, went over the radiologist. Unfortunately, it was not imaging at that time still that anything was wrong. She suspected that I probably had some sort of infection. And so they actually put me on an antibiotic for 10 days. I was taking that, but each day that I would run, I mean, it was now starting to be so large that it was pounding and it was hurting. Called the OB and said, okay, there is something wrong. And so the next step to that, because she had thought it was an infection and it was on the skin, she referred me to a dermatologist. And so now we're probably almost 5 weeks since my first visit. So we're into June now, and set the appointment with the dermatologist. Still at this point was very optimistic. Nothing's wrong. Everything's going to be fine.
Had you completed those antibiotics that they gave you at that point?
I did. Mm-hmm.
And so no change after antibiotics?
No change
Definite
after.
Red flag.
Yes. So they were, there is a certain type of breast cancer that can present itself. It's called Paget's disease, but it's breast cancer, but on the skin. And so I think at that point that's what they were looking at. Went to my dermatologist, and unfortunately she had been in a car wreck. And so I was actually seeing a sub and my mother went with me, and because Mark was at work, and my mother is a breast cancer survivor as well. So that was, really a hard time for her. Just, I think as a mother, you always kind of go to the worst. She was not as optimistic as I was being. So went to the dermatologist. He walks in and he was like, okay, let me see what's going on. I tell him kind of the whole story. And he said, okay, let me look. And so you open up the what do you call that?
That little
the gown
shirt that we love to wear.
Yes. The
show
gown.
Everybody everything, don't you?
Yep. And he said, close that. I need to make a phone call. You need to be at a surgeon. And I'm going to refer you to the one that dealt with my wife's breast cancer. And at that point,
how you were told.
Mm-hmm. He called the doctor. He personally got me an appointment the next day. That was a Thursday. I was at the surgeon's on Friday, and they did what's called a punch biopsy, and he did it in 3 different areas. And he said that, we'll send the results off. We'll probably get them back Tuesday or Wednesday, and I'll give you a call. Monday, July 1st. So now we're at July 1st. And it was 2:28. I was sitting in my car. I was about to get on a conference call for work. And the doctor called me and he said, where are you? It's never good when they ask you, where are you? Are you alone? Are you driving? Those types of things. And he said, it came back. It's breast cancer. And, at that point, I just started crying. And he referred me to Texas Oncology, and I was there the next day and started the process. And yeah.
Now, before we go through the process, because I want everybody to know what the process was like for you too. But before we do that, you mentioned that your mother was a breast cancer survivor. Mm-hmm. Had you already had genetic testing to see if you carried the gene?
So I was adopted. So there was no genetics. So this was, we literally were starting with a blank slate. I am fortunate enough that the family friend that handled my adoption, he had the ability to reach out to my biological mother, and she did answer back and said that there was no history of breast cancer in her family, but they're now also linking it. It is my understanding that they are now also linking it to the father's side. but we didn't have the ability to reach out to him. So at this point, they did do genetic testing. They did the BRCA1, the BRCA2. I am very excited to say I do not carry the gene. So I do have two small girls. And at this point, they do not need to be closely monitored. However, because I was so young, it is definitely something that they will take in consideration through, their years and all
Sure,
that.
that would be a concern. Now, when they did call you and say, who are you with and where are you? Where were you? Were you with someone?
No, I was by myself. I was in a car in the parking lot. Yeah. Hung up the phone, called Mark. He left work. And he's like, where are you? And I said, no, I'll be fine. I can drive home. Drove home. I called my mother. That was a harder call than to call Mark. She was playing Mexican train, I think, with all of her friends, and told her, and she left. She didn't say goodbye or anything, and went home and talked to my dad. And I'm pretty sure she had as much wine as I did.
How old was your mom when she had breast cancer?
So she was 47.
So also pretty young.
So she was considered young, but I think the cutoff is 45. So the average age of women in the United States is early 50s. So she was still young, but I think 45 is the cutoff for the very young.
And so you were pretty young when you watched your mother go through this.
Yeah, I was 13.
So the experience that you had at home. I think
I'll have to get back on that. I know I was a very bratty teenager. And at that time, they didn't talk about cancer like they do now. It was, she was stage 1. So they caught it very early with her. However, she opted for the double mastectomy, which at that time, I'm not sure if that was common practice or, times have changed. Every doctor is different. Every regiment is different.
And so she had the double mastectomy, and they did not continue with anything after that with her?
She had some chemotherapy, and then she did not have radiation though. But she was lucky. She didn't. Her hair thinned, but she did not lose it all. So that was good for her.
We could probably have a whole show on what it was like to be a teenager with a teenager's mind and activities, being in a home with a mom that's going through chemotherapy. So I would imagine that marked a certain aspect of your life at that time and gave you some sense of what you were about to go through.
Yes, I remember, which this might be like down the line, but I remember her being weak, not very active at the time. I don't ever remember seeing her get sick, but that also might have been something that she concealed from me. She put on a very strong face for me, just like I did for my kids.
Yeah.
For your children, you try to not have them as affected as possible. So not a whole lot of conversations. I didn't understand what she was going through.
Yeah.
So
I can definitely see where she would have guarded herself from that. But having her by your side when you were diagnosed and going through your treatment had to have been an amazing gift, a parent figure who knows exactly what you're going through.
Yes, exactly.
So let's go through the process. Let's talk about
Okay.
what you had as far as treatment for the following months
Okay.
after you were diagnosed.
Sure. Because of my age and like I said, let me start it out. Everybody's treatment is different. The makeup of the chemo that each person is geared specifically for them, although the words are the same. AC, which is adrenomycin, I believe. It is called the Red Devil. It looks like they're putting blood into you. And I can still feel the taste in my mouth. It's like metal. So let me start from the beginning. So the next day, July 3rd, I was in Texas Oncology. They did the first steps. And, my oncologist, I think I can say her name, Dr. Pat, amazing, wonderful, she spelled everything out. She didn't try to sugarcoat anything. She talked about best scenario to worst scenario. And I think they try to prepare you for both and just let you know, it might be somewhere in the middle. But she also gave me what she would suggest. I went from stage 1 to stage 3 in that short amount of time. Hey, I'm doing an interview, babe. Go back. Sorry. You can come say hi. You want to come say hi?
Good. We have kids.
Yes.
We have dogs.
Yeah, there. Can you hear them playing in the background? But I did. So she said this is what she would suggest because of my age. I was young. The rapid growth. They needed to start me on the chemotherapy ASAP to stop it from spreading, and so that's what they did. So from July 3rd to July 10th, I did an MRI, I did a CAT scan, I had blood drawn. I had testing. It's very fast, and it was almost like a everyday event. I was at some sort of doctor doing some sort of test. At that time, it hasn't sunk in. It's still a blur, all that kind of stuff. So July 10th, I went in and had a portacath put in up here. And that is so they didn't have to find a vein every time. Because, your veins can collapse and all that kind of stuff. And it's really easy. They go in, they put this thing that goes into the large artery down here, and it just pumps all through your body. Yeah, started my first chemotherapy on July 11th. And what that looked like is I was doing the AC treatment for 8 weeks, or I had 6 treatments every other week.
Okay.
So I went in on Wednesdays. You had to be there about 8:30, and it's an all-day process. It's about 6.5 hours that you're there. They draw blood. You see the doctor. All your blood counts have to be in like a certain zone, and then you go over to the infusion room, and they hook you up, and
the blood has to be in a certain zone because of white blood cells
to see if your body can handle the chemotherapy. Mm-hmm. And then and so that was one day. And then the next day I had to go and get a shot that was supposed to boost my white blood cells so I could have it the next week. The average age woman would have chemotherapy 2 weeks in, like 2 weeks without chemo, and then on the third week would go in. But because of my age, they wanted to do it more rapidly.
So would that be just considered more aggressive, or just because your body can handle it at a younger age?
More aggressive.
Okay.
Yes. And let me, I'm trying to get so 8 weeks, 4. So it was, I apologize. It was 4 treatments of AC, but it was over an 8-week period. Okay.
So every other week, but
every other week.
They pump you with something to stimulate your white blood cell growth as well as the chemotherapy itself.
Yes. You never really get like a dip. It was pretty intense. It was a very expensive shot that, thank goodness, my insurance paid for.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
They took really good care of you. And I'm going to interject here because this is about the time that I noticed Kristen. Kristen and I live relatively close to each other. Our girls go to the same school, but I hadn't actually met Kristen yet. There was this amazing bald woman that was running through my neighborhood every day. And I was thinking to myself, because she always wore pink, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if that woman is going through breast cancer. And I never had the courage to just approach Kristen and just ask her. So we met a little bit later on, but Kristen can tell you that she continued on her fitness journey while going through the chemotherapy.
Yes. So I lost my hair relatively quickly. It was about 2.5 weeks in. And that's the hardest part. Anybody that is watching this that has gone through and has lost their hair, it comes out in chunks. You comb your hair and your whole hairbrush is full of hair. You sleep at night and you wake up and your pillow, can be covered with hair. And that was one of the hardest things for me to go through. And I guess really not to go through, but to come with terms of it. You quickly learn that it's just hair and that it will grow back and that it's not what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside. But for someone my age, it took me a little while to get there. I finally had Mark take me to a wig shop and they shaved my hair. And after that, I was fine because I wasn't seeing the long pieces come out. And shortly after that, all the little pricklies came out, and I have to admit, I had this beautiful shiny head.
You did. You had a gorgeous head. It was great.
No scars. I was blessed with a good head.
And Kristen never lost her smile. I remember seeing her in the neighborhood, and she was always just as joyful as you see her today. So what do you credit that energy, the ability to continue forward in joy through that period?
A couple of things. I did some early reading about how, and of course my oncologist told me as well, that fitness can help with the overall feeling of how you personally feel, but it also can help with when you're going through cancer. I think it's just fitness in general when you're going through any stressful situation. And so I had my mindset. I mean, that was my favorite thing to do almost every day, was that personal time to run, to clear my head, to, no one could I decided very early on, no one was going to take that away from me. And as long as I could do it, I was going to do it.
Wow.
I think that helped me through being active, being fit, helped me through it. The other thing was not having it as normal as possible for my 2 girls. You never know how strong or how brave you are until you're put through this type of situation.
Absolutely. You your situation is very special, I think, because
So yeah,
you
at first running.
are you there, Kristen?
Oh, are you there?
Yeah, you're freezing just a little bit. So I don't know, maybe our connection's a little weak. Let's
Yeah.
just give it a second.
Okay.
There you are.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're audio only.
You can't see me?
No, but I can. That's okay. I can hear you.
Okay. So your situation is special because you were already running and could continue running. Two situations are never the same. There might be somebody down the street that feels just, that they just absolutely cannot. So while the running continue to feed your mind with dopamine and help you continue feeling energetic and joyful. If someone down the street feels like they've just been hit by a truck, would you have any advice for that person?
I think that our bodies react. I think so this would be this personal opinion. This is not any, just from experience. I would I would tell that person that a lot of it, in my opinion, is mind over matter. I think that if you dwell on it and that's all you think about, which it's very easy to do. You have to pick yourself up and keep going. Trust me, there were times at night when I would lay in bed and then you cry and why did this happen to me? Why am I going through this? I'm 38 years old and there's no medical reason on why I got cancer. I finally just kind of put it to myself that it's environmental. And then you have to get past it, that this is something I did to myself. There's something I ate. There was something, I drank. I was unhealthy at a younger age. You have to get past all of that and figure out how you can impact somebody else's life by telling your story and just living life to the fullest, because it could end anytime.
That's great advice.
Does that make any sense?
It's great advice for all of us. But for somebody with that kind of daunting knowledge that they're sitting with, I think that's really good. And it's one day at a time, right? Because every day could be completely different.
Exactly. And I know it's a lot easier to say than to do sometimes. I really think that being active and being fit, there were some days that I couldn't run, that I just walked, but I got up and did it. I changed how I ate. It really it really emphasized, okay, Kristen, you're going to have to start living a fit and healthy life, and you're going to have to set by example, and you're going to have to get through this and be a role model, for your two girls, and then just for other breast cancer survivors.
Wow. So you had decided at that time that you were going to stand up for other breast cancer survivors.
Yep. By telling my story, I feel as if, because I was told there was nothing wrong for so long, someone else could have continued to think, okay, well, the doctors have told me, everything's fine. But I encourage, I talk to people all the time that your body, something's not right. And even though the doctors, they make mistakes just like everybody else, you are the best person, and just not ever give up. I might not be here if I continued to go day after day after day and continue to say, well, the doctor told me I was fine.
True. You were your own best advocate.
I refuse. Yep. I refuse to believe
Good
that.
for you. And that's all we can do for all of us. We have to be our own advocate. Nobody knows ourselves better than ourselves. And we do have instinct, though many of us deny it. If we listen to our instinct, we usually are correct and are much better off by it. So I'm so grateful that you did, that you knew, and grateful that, you know, that you're able to talk about it now and that we're here and we're friends after.
Yeah.
Yes. So what happens after the chemotherapy?
Well, I do want to kind of, which is one of the other reasons why we're here. One of the first visits that they do is when they find out that you have children, Texas Oncology immediately refers you to a nonprofit organization as Wonders and Worries. And I know that we'll get into that, but that was something that Mark and I acted on immediately. It is a nonprofit organization that are the advocates for children, to help them with the process of a parent, a caregiver that is either going through a treatment or has passed away. And I really contribute how my girls went through the process and how they're still dealing with it and how strong they are and their understanding of what I was going through to this nonprofit. Yeah, you have
said so many kind things and I know that Wonders and Worries, which is why we're doing a fundraiser to help them, because they've helped you and so many other people in our area alone with this very important issue. As you were the child of someone with breast cancer, you were especially sensitive to how children feel to be in a household with someone with cancer. It's just so great that the oncologist recommends that right away and that you can get the help right away.
Yeah, and they contacted me probably 4 hours after my first visit with Dr. Pat. I mean, it's immediate. I'm assuming that they do that with everyone. But so after the 8 weeks of the AC, I also had 12 weeks of Taxol, which is every week. So I had 12 treatments of that. And then I had a double mastectomy.
After all of this treatment, you had a double mastectomy. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I had the chemotherapy. I had the 8 weeks of AC. I had the 12 weeks of the Taxol. And then I had my double mastectomy. Did they
decide that after the fact, or did you know that going in that was part of the plan?
Oh, I knew going in that was part of the plan. So, and each person is different. There are some people that have it at the beginning and then they go through the treatments. But by the recommendation of my oncologist, they needed to stop the growth. They needed to shrink it. And that way, for a lack of a better word, they could scrape it all out, scrape all that tissue and hopefully secure that it won't reoccur. And so I had, and at that time, my plastic surgeon put in expanders. And that was because I knew I wanted reconstruction. But because I was slated to go through 6 weeks of radiation, what they have to do is they have to expand the tissue before you have it radiated, because radiated skin will not stretch after that. So, but they have to put like placeholders in. They can't put my plastic surgeon recommends not putting in the implants in because through radiation, they have found that they sometimes harden the silicone or can harden, and then they have to take that out anyway. So this is the procedure that my plastic surgeon does, which highly recommend. He does beautiful work.
Okay, well, who is he? Because we all want to know.
Yeah, his name is Dr. Steve Holzman, and he's here in Austin. And he, is a wonderful human being. He gives it to you straight. There was no bullying around, and I liked that about him. He was a straight shooter. So when you're going
through as much as you are, it's like, just give it to me straight, doc, so that we can move. Let's do this, right?
Yes. And he also was the plastic surgeon that had done my breast reduction. So this was my second time dealing with him. And so I would recommend him for anything.
So the spacers were put in before radiation, but after the mastectomy. Okay.
Yep. Correct. And so you go every week after that and he fills them up. You got these big syringes, and you're like laying there and they're like, rrr, and you see them like stretch every week because they have to do it slowly. And then you basically get to pick how big you want or, all that kind of stuff. So
one of the things you never think about with all of this, but that's amazing.
Yeah. And then they have a certain time, like you need to be expanded by this to start the radiation. And I had radiation for two different, or probably a couple of different reasons. One, because of my age. Two, because it had presented itself on the skin. And then three, the reoccurrence. The percentage of reoccurrence is less if you choose to have radiation. So that was the recommendation. And that was 5 days a week at the same time every day for 6 weeks.
Oh.
And that is when my fitness declined.
That had to be extremely taxing on your body.
Mm-hmm. Although it lasted about 3 or 4 minutes, the process was very, very quick. I don't know if it was just that every day going to the doctor, getting undressed, getting into, you lay up and you're in this like certain form and they have your arm, every day they put you in the same position. They have it down to a science. And that's when I didn't have as much, took the energy out of me. That really did.
Because they pointed directly at the spot, right? And it actually sort of disintegrates the flesh around that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it almost looks as if like you eventually look like you have a sunburn.
But it's like an internal sort of
burning. Yeah, they burn it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I would imagine it would affect the skeletal system and the muscles around it. It has to. They can't just choose that it's only going to radiate breast tissue.
Well, yeah. Well, I didn't have any tissue there anymore.
Muscle and bone.
It was radiation. Yeah.
So that sounds painful.
I don't know. I don't know if I ever thought that it was painful, but that's what, like, I think my fitness probably towards the end stopped completely.
You had to take the time at that point to allow yourself to recover.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And everybody goes into seasons. And for those of you on the call right now that are not into fitness right now, all of us enjoy fitness, but all of us also have seasons where we have to allow the body to heal if it is not well. And your body will tell you that it is time to heal, even if you're an avid runner like Kristen. Mm-hmm. So she had to take that time and allow her white blood cells and everything else to sort of catch up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that was when towards the end, when I stopped running, I started to gain some weight. And shortly I had packed on an extra 12 pounds, I believe, in a very short period of time. At that time, when you're going through the treatment, your doctors are very sensitive. They're not wanting you to, I continued to talk to my doctor, about what I was doing. I remember asking her, if I should be on any diet, or should I be, of course, that's when they start to talk to you about all the words that are very common in my vocabulary now, but like the clean eating, staying away from the processed foods. I've cut out sodas. They really talk to you about limiting your alcohol, because they do studies on so many different things and reoccurrence. But while you're going through treatment, they just, keep on going. But as soon as you're done with your treatment, it's like, all right, now we need to talk about you for the rest of your life. And when I went in June, when I was in May, I must have been done in May, went for a follow-up, and they do, okay, this is what it needs to look like for the rest of your life. And that's when they started to really talk about, okay, you've gained, this much weight. We need to really get you back into a healthy weight range. And they started talking about the BMI and the exercise and my bones, the chemotherapy and all of that can, just like you were saying, can take a toll on your bones. They started talking to me about making sure that I'm taking my calcium and getting all the right nutrients and making my bones healthy so cancer doesn't seep its way into my bones. For someone like myself that has depleted all their estrogen, that's something I didn't say at the beginning. My cancer was estrogen positive, which means estrogen that's in my body is fuel. It's like gas. It makes it ramp up, which is the reason why my cancer was growing so fast, rapidly. Which when you have surgery or chemotherapy, like they're squashing all your estrogen, which was probably another reason. It was the onset of menopause, which was another reason I gained some weight. But this is when I found Shakeology. Was through okay, what can I do? What program is going to work best for me? And
your doctors had told you that you needed to stay away from processed things.
Yes.
Which is good advice.
Yep.
So we're talking about 12 pounds, basically inflammation, lack of estrogen, because if you're on the call and you don't know, women's hormones also help them with fat metabolism. Estrogen and progesterone help with fat metabolism. So when those are adjusted or they're off, then the body holds on to fat more, which is why during menopause, women tend to gain a little bit of weight, specifically in the tummy area. So about 12 pounds, we're looking at, both fat and probably swelling and inflammation that happened to you. And so then you chose Shakeology as an all-natural supplement to what you were doing, which was trying to eat the best you could.
Right. At the time, I was looking for, I don't want to say a quick fix, but I was looking for something that was going to be convenient, easy to follow, something that I looked forward to, that tasted good, that I wasn't putting anything negative or bad back into my body. And the Shakeology through reviews and through a friend of mine. And then my best friend, Crystal, she was like, how about this? And I was like, I'll try anything at this point, and we ordered it, and I was hooked from the first time I ever tried it.
Me too, girl. Yeah. So then, before we go back to wonders and worries, just let's take it post-cancer for a little while. So you started on daily Shakeology and got back into fitness.
Yes.
And then did you get back to your normal weight in a certain period of time, or did you feel like you got fit at in a certain period of time?
So, and that's interesting that you say that, because now I have a total different outlook on what the healthy weight is. Since I have started back on Shakeology and different programs, I'm actually only about 6 to 8 pounds less, but I have shaved my body down almost 15 inches, and I have now we're into building the muscle and taking away that fat, which is where my body is storing whatever leftover estrogen I have. It's stored in my fat cells. So no, I'm not at what I was pre-cancer, but I am in better shape and I am a healthier individual than
I'll tell
I was.
you, those of you that don't know Kristen personally, she's in fantastic shape. And having strong bones and strong muscles and correct proportion in your body will trump the number on the scale every day and every minute of the week, because that is what healthy is. Healthy is good skin. She's growing her hair back and it's going very well. Look at that. She's got all that hair. and strong. I mean, being strong really, really matters much more than being thin. Folks, ladies that are listening, being strong trumps being skinny every day of the week.
Yep. And I went and had a bone density scan, and that really spoke to me because she said all of my bones were strong and healthy, but she really kind of emphasized on my pelvic area. And she said doing core exercises will help increase that bone mass and strength.
That's important to know. I like that little tip. Absolutely. Keeping the core strong makes everything better. And muscles and bones are attached to each other. And the stronger your muscles are, the more it supports your bone, which improves bone health. Very important. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super excited. I go for my visit on October 30th.
The day after the fundraiser.
So I'm
Yay.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to go and have the doctor go, whoa, Kristen, you look amazing. Like, that's what I'm expecting her to say to me.
Like yes, I did it.
Yes.
Totally are a rock star. That's why our team is a rock star team, because we have people like Kristen on it.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk wonders and worries. They, as you said, they came in from the very beginning. And what exactly did they do with your family and with your children? And what did that look like?
Yeah. So what they do initially is the child life specialist. So you meet with them. I talked to the program director, and she kind of really, was very sensitive in her words and very kind. And she set up a interview with a child life specialist for my husband and I initially. And we met with her. Her name was Lexi, and she wanted to know about me. She wanted to know about what I was going through, what my treatments looked like, and what type of program I wanted the girls to be in. They have group settings. And then because I had the 2 children, I was eligible for what they call like private sessions. And that's the one that we opted for. And what they do is she met with the girls for 6 weeks, once every week. And they geared the topic of conversation and all the education material, all that for exactly what I was going through. They talked about the chemo, and they have this doll and it had a port, and they talked about mommy losing her hair. My girls were not worried when I lost my hair. They, safe zones, how are you feeling? What are your scary words? What are you, they, worked through them through art projects, through play. These are, we knew that we were in good hands because this is what she did. She knew how to talk to them. She knew how to pick up on different things that the kids were saying and how to expand on that and their emotions. It was a safe zone. They have 2 locations here in Austin, and there's one in North Austin and then in Westlake. And they actually have child life specialists that go to the student, to the child, if they can't come to them. And they, through Wonders and Worries, my kids were able to do a tour of Texas Oncology because kids under a certain age are not allowed into the infusion room. And so after hours, they open up the facility and take the kids through, and they got to see the radiation module thing, that I got to sit in, and it made it less scary for them. Obviously they were scared and worried about mommy, but it was an amazing experience. And the one thing I really, really, really like about them is once you're done with your treatments, they don't forget about you. They continue to invite you to monthly check-ins. They have still family festivals. In fact, we're going to their fall festival next weekend, and on a Saturday, like a late Saturday afternoon. And no, it's next weekend, but they don't forget about you. They continue to invite you. How are you doing? We get, our kids are still welcome at anything. They also introduced us to what's called Camp Kesem, and through Wonders and Worries, my children get to attend a summer camp with other children that have gone through the same situation that they have throughout the whole state of Texas at no charge. It's put on through the Live Strong Foundation, and my kids get to experience a summer camp for a full week. I say at no cost. You have to have cancer.
That's a pretty big cost, but
and they continue to talk about, feelings. And this past year, they wrote down some stuff on paper, and then they had a camp out at night, and they got to burn those words in the fire and watch them. But my kids would have never been able to experience that without Wonders and Worries.
And the relationships that they're making with other children that are going through it is so invaluable to them now and in the future.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yes. And my kids can't wait to go back. They can't wait to go back. And they are eligible through this all the way through grade 12.
They'll get to maintain those relationships with other kids in similar situations. That is just amazing. I'm just amazed by this organization. God bless them for doing what they do for families like yours. And I have to say, I've met your children, and they are fabulous girls. They're
Yeah.
fabulous. I mean, they're as courageous and confident as you are, so we can credit that to you and Mark. You and Mark are awesome parents. But I'm really, really glad that they had the extra help through this time.
Yeah. I was just going to give if I flip over, can you still see me?
Flip over what?
Oh, I flipped over I was just going to give like a brief history, of when it was started.
Okay. Yeah. If you're looking at your screen, we're still just looking at your webcam. We're looking at you.
Oh, cool. So Meredith Cooper and Melissa Hicks, they created Wonders and Worries in 2001 when they saw the need for more formalized social services for children who have a parent diagnosed with a chronic or life-threatening illness. So it's not even necessarily something that is just for the different types of cancers. It's just for chronic or life-threatening illness. And she was a certified life specialist, and she saw a need of children with cancer and blood disorders, throughout the years, is who she worked with. And she worked in a hospital setting, and they saw firsthand the devastating effects of the family member's illness that it had on the emotional well-being of the entire family. And that's one thing I didn't talk about was, they do monthly check-ins, and not only do the kids get to go and have like a group setting where they do different topics and, healing for them, they also allowed the parents or, the one going through the treatment or, that was diagnosed with a life-threatening, they gave them personal attention as well. So it really did focus on the whole family. However, I think their main focus is the child. Mm-hmm. And they also step in, if there's a child that loses a parent or a caregiver.
Excellent. Great.
So
thank you so much for telling us about Wonders and Worries. I've only learned about them through you, and I really appreciate learning about them. And I'm glad to help their organization, more than glad to do what I can to help them out. So we're going to close the blab right now with our public announcement that we are doing a fundraiser specifically for Wonders and Worries, where our proceeds will be donated specifically to that organization for an event that we're hosting online Thursday, October 29th, so that anyone that has access to Facebook events can get on. And we're specifically doing the types of products that have helped Kristen get to where she is through Shakeology and fitness. We thought that would be appropriate to both help other people get these fantastic fitness and nutrition products to help them move forward in their health and fitness, and give to Wonders and Worries at the same time. So it will all be done on a Facebook event. Kristen and I will be putting the event page up on our Twitter and on our Facebook so that you can follow up and attend that event on that Thursday night. It will be for a couple hours on Thursday night, where you'll see Kristen and I there, and we will talk again about what Wonders and Worries is. And we'll also talk you through some of the different options that you have for your own health and fitness. And it will be a fun couple of hours. Woo!
Sorry. Woo! See, everybody's excited.
That you can just sit down in your pajamas with your Facebook event up, take a look at what's going on, look at your options, get something that's good for you, and help this wonderful organization. I couldn't be prouder, Kristen, that we get to help this wonderful organization. I can't wait to meet the people that have started Wonders and Worries.
I'm just so thrilled and touched that my team wants to give back to an organization and nonprofit that I personally am very passionate about.
Absolutely. As soon as we said that we
you.
wanted to do something, we asked you and you thought of this organization right away. So it's perfect.
Immediately. Yes.
Works out great. Okay, well, we are going to close our Blab call now. I want to thank you so much for your time, Kristen, for talking us through all of it. I really hope that we've helped somebody today, and we're going to have this recording so that we can put it up in other places, and we'll continue helping people.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Way to go, Kristen. Yay!